She was 30 years younger. He thought it was great that he had this hot young girlfriend and paraded her around and told everyone, look at how, look at me. I'm a big stud. I've got this young 20-something lady on my shoulder. All these women he's had affairs with, it's the same stuff. And he's probably accessing government funds to do this. He's entertaining these women in hotels while he's prosecuting people. I was driving down the street and I saw Perry rob the Dairy Mart or whatever, and he came out with a gun. Right? You're supposed to be a fact witness. You're supposed to tell what you know, not manufactured testimony because you're a paralegal inside the prosecutor's office, sitting in meetings with other government witnesses with access to all the evidence. This is a fraud on the court. You think Don Nugent or one of these judges would say, wait a minute, this is a grave insult to our system of justice where the prosecutor is perpetrating a fraud of telling us that this witness is a fact witness when in fact they're not a fact witness. They're a paralegal inside the prosecutor's office. Listen, there was no crime in my case until the government started indicting people. Then the crimes all took place inside the prosecutor's office. The answer is, I think the feds used to be more reputable, more honest, but our mass incarceration system has exploded the number of FBI agents, federal prosecutors. Jeff Sessions said we were going to prosecute our way out of the opioid crisis. We're going to hire more prosecutors to prosecute people with addictions. And so we've just got this government out of control with 3+ million people in jail. The other thing, too, is federal courts do not want to ever throw out federal convictions. There is some accountability with state misconduct because you ultimately could get into federal court in a federal habeas and allege a constitutional violation. But if you're charged in federal court, like Don Nugent, the judge in my case, I mean, he wants to shut me up. He doesn't want this case unwound. And he doesn't want to write a ruling that says, I presided over Tony Viola's trial where there was all these constitutional violations. So the feds have a benefit that there's nowhere to go to seek accountability other than right back to the same place where you were prosecuted and jailed and indicted. So the FBI is living off of its old reputation. This past week, they paid $88 million to the families of the people murdered by Dylan Roof because the FBI screwed up the background check. The guy wasn't even eligible to have a gun, but they didn't do anything. So who's going to get fired? Nobody. This past week, the FBI paid to the people who were killed by that Dylan Roof white supremacist guy that were praying in the church. Because the FBI screwed up the background check. Look at Allie Reisman and all our gymnasts that went to the FBI and said, hey, we're being molested. And the FBI agent, what does he do? He goes and tries to get a job with USA Gymnastics. And so Congress had testimony. So if the FBI has any kind of reputation left, it should be shattered. And the FBI is basically nothing better than the local police force in slightly better cut suits. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on in our country with misconduct and criminal activity by FBI agents that never leads to anybody getting fired. All these multi-million-dollar settlements, the taxpayers pay. That doesn't create accountability in the FBI and in the prosecutor's office. I mean, the list of FBI misconduct, I mean, there's literally been books written about it, and it's outrageous what's going on. But the answer is Clover was a perfect victim for Dan Kasaris because she was 30 years younger. He thought it was great that he had this hot young girlfriend and paraded her around and told everyone, look at how, look at me. I'm a big stud. I've got this young 20-something lady on my shoulder. He made her do all this work inside the prosecutor's office, and he's going to rescue her just like he rescues Kelly Connors and Lisa Lau and Rose Kapatursky. All these women he's had affairs with. It's the same stuff. And he's probably accessing government funds to do this. He's entertaining these women in hotels while he's prosecuting people. So there's a guy named Ralph Infant who was the mayor of a city who was prosecuted by Kasaris. And while he's prosecuting him, Kasaris is in a hotel in Youngstown, Ohio, even though his house is an hour away, staying in a hotel. He's got his Kelly Connors there, and they're living it up. They're ordering food and they're watching movies, and it's like a big party to put people in jail. So this guy, Kasaris, is reckless. he leaves a trail of his misconduct, and he feels invincible because nothing has happened, even when his affair with Clover is outed. I mean, the county prosecutor here produced those 600 pages of emails. I mean, if there's any fairness, they would have immediately issued an arrest warrant for Kasaris because those emails evidence a crime. They're covering up her perjury in federal court. How do we make sure Tony doesn't find out? It could be a game changer if this gets out that we are using false testimony. Mm-hmm. So they're actively covering up perjured testimony. There's racist emails. There's all this crazy stuff about hiding evidence and destroying evidence in writing, right over Dan Kasaris's prosecutor's signature. So the fact that my case goes on and this task force hasn't been examined properly is really outrageous. It's almost as bad as the misconduct in the case itself because it's all proven. It's all their own words. Who believes the FBI doesn't know about their own records and their own record system? I mean, if that's true, the FBI should be shut down until they could properly assemble records or have some type of record system. Because how do you know that you have all met your Brady violation or obligations to criminal defendants if you don't even know about your own records? Who believes this nonsense? So we've got problems in America.
Well, the question becomes, who's going to shut the FBI down? Who's going to arrest the FBI? And then on top of that, when we go back to Catherine Clover, she actually ended up, like you said, in multiple other cases in which she's committing perjury. She ends up getting sentenced to, 4 years of probation and 4 years of probation and about 5 years of house arrest.
No, a few months of house arrest. Just a few months of house arrest.
That's it. She didn't serve a year of house arrest.
Correct.
And I'm like,
not only did Dan Kasaris not lose his appointment as prosecutor, but he is actually moving up. Right? I mean, doesn't he have a new
he wins cases. I mean, the feds bring him in. I mean, one of the other things about the feds is the reason the feds don't do anything about Kasaris is because they're in on it. I mean, they bring him in. He's called the crazy man inside the prosecutor's office. They know we'll bring the crazy man in because he's willing to do all this nutty stuff to win the case. And so Dave Yost, the Ohio Attorney General, who tweets out how great Dan Kasaris is, he brings him into high profile cases to, quote, win, because they want to make sure that they win these cases. And they know he's willing to do anything, destroy evidence, hide evidence, intimidate witnesses, use fabricated evidence. So normally you could go to the U.S. attorney and say, hey, there's a problem with this prosecutor, but they're in on it. They bring him into the cases. And so Kasaris brags that he's buddies with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. He's protected by Dave Yost, the Ohio Attorney General, that he's buddies with the U.S. attorney and Mark Bennett and all this stuff. So what's happening is there's no accountability at all. Now, when you ask who's going to arrest the FBI, well, what about, and I know that there would be whining, but what if we froze the budget? Forget defunding the police. What if we just froze the budget for 1 year? What if we made the FBI, which they won't do, disclose how much money they're paying to informants? I mean, what about that? I mean, there's no transparency. There's no accountability. These people do whatever they want. The reason I went to jail for, I would have lost a second trial and had another 30 years or something in jail after. The reason Catherine Clover got 3 months of house arrest and I went to go to jail for 15 years was because the government doesn't care about anything except protecting informants, and they target who they want. I was the target. It could have been just as easy for them to target Catherine Clover and ask me to testify against her or something, but I'm the target. It's a scary thing. When that paper says United States of America versus Tony Viola, that's what that means. United States of America. Every resource of this country will be used to crush me because I'm not willing to plead guilty. That's why they didn't care. If Osama bin Laden had testimony against me, they would have given him probation too. I'm the target. When you're the target, they will allow government witnesses to lie, break the law, steal, perjure themselves, whatever, because I'm the guy they want to win against. So they pick sides and do what they want. And then they backfill evidence that comports with their theory. So first I was supposedly own all these companies I didn't own. And then later I was present when she was making the loans applications. But then later they said, no, that wasn't true either. I didn't own the Transcontinental and the location she was working at was owned by somebody else. All of a sudden it was. So, I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous. The theory is wrong. It's an abuse of power. And we need to have restorative justice in this country by vacating these 1,100 cases. You got all these people that have felonies for nothing. By the way, one other thing is that the banks never got any of this restitution. They collected $20 million of restitution from all these people. You know, when I'm in jail, I'm supposed to send $25 in every quarter. And they never forward it to the bank. We have a ledger of what they're doing. It just goes to show that they're not victims. Any normal crime victim, if they actually lost money, and the prosecutors collected it, would pick up the phone and say, hey, can I come down there and get the money that you guys collected? So this whole thing is ridiculous. This mortgage fraud is ridiculous. And these cases need to be reopened, particularly where Clover testified.
All right. Go ahead, Jeanette. Go ahead.
Well, I want to ask, I was just curious about all of this. Now, yes, it's hard to put down the FBI and the government. Or have you ever thought about like talk to someone, like hire like maybe the mayor or, you know, to explain more about your case? Maybe the mayor could make a change of it.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I was in jail, you could buy a typing cartridge for $7. And I used to crank out letters to every congressman, senator, everybody that I could, hoping that somebody would express an interest. And I generally would get a polite response that said, we're sorry for what you're dealing with, but we didn't prosecute you and you have to pursue justice through the courts. You have to have a finding through the courts. I contacted the Ohio Supreme Court Discipline Council. I said, hey, the prosecutor had a romantic relationship with the witness. Here's 600 pages. No, we can't look into it. So a lot of our government, there's a lot of buck passing, right? Well, we're sorry for what happened. It's the friendly bureaucrat. Gee, Tony, we're sorry this happened to you, but you know, we didn't do it, so I don't know what I can do. A lot of state and local officials say, well, you have a federal conviction. We can't help you. You know, that's federal. But I continue to reach out. We're trying to find innocence projects to take over the case. And this past week, Ohio's Senator, U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, did write a letter to the FBI asking them to explain to him how they don't know about records in their own records case and why the Inspector General hasn't conducted a full investigation. And I did post that on my website. So I'm very grateful to Senator Brown. And I don't want to make this a political thing. I just want anyone who wants to help. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I believe this is a threat to our country. That prosecutors break the law and do whatever they want. And even when they're caught, there's no accountability. I think this is destroying our country and our people. It's awful. So, I mean, I just don't believe you treat anyone like this. I mean, we talked in the beginning about being a Catholic guy who goes to church. I mean, I believe God created everybody and God gave everyone their talents and abilities. And it's heartbreaking to me as a person to see our own citizens treated like this. I mean, to be in those jails, it made me sick. To watch cops beat up inmates, people being thrown downstairs, jail transit, put in a holding cell, I was in solitary confinement for 4 months because a reporter called about my case. I mean, to see people treated like this is awful. But the answer is yes, we need change in our country and you need political leaders to get involved because they're the people who could change laws, change funding, make the FBI more transparent, change the rules where there is accountability. So we got one senator, and hopefully that's the start of more. And hopefully more people will join our efforts. We need a big tent of everybody who cares about this issue to come together to help. And by the way, I have to criticize myself because when I was running my business, I never worried about injustice. I have to tell everybody that I was complacent. I never thought this would happen to me. I never really thought about it. I just assumed that, you know, basically the system was kind of fair and that you had some kind of chance. I mean, if you think you have a fair chance in federal court, you can forget it, right? But I didn't know at the time. So, and I wasn't active about justice even though the Bible says visit prisoners, I didn't. So I'm asking other people to care, but I didn't before this happened to me. So I always say to everyone, like yourself and Sandy writing the book and all this, you guys are better people than I am because I care about it because I was in jail for 10 years, but before that I didn't. And so I always apologize because I'm somewhat responsible as a complacent person who didn't look into this and see what was going on and really understand what our country was doing to our own people. So to the extent that I was complacent, it is my fault. And I'm eyes wide open now.
I gotta admit, I agree with you on that 110%. And the reason why I agree with you on that is two reasons. Number one is Jeanette. She pulled my coat on it. It told me that the people, even behind bars, deserve a second chance. And she's right. But what I did not know was what you did not know, the level of corruption and barbarity behind, or barbarism behind prison walls. And not only are the guilty going through this, the innocent like you are going through this as well. So that in itself begs the need for change over the entire system. However, I want to say that we've been going at this now for over an hour and a half, and as always, it's been fantastic. So we want to wrap this up, but I want to ask, does anybody have any last questions to ask? Anything else or any last statements? Tony, do you have any last statements you want to make?
Well, I do.
You go first.
Tony, will you come back?
Of course, I'd be delighted. You guys are great, and of course.
Okay.
I have like a final comment. Well, two. Thank you so much, Tony. And I want to say I love working with you and Jeanette Perry. It's amazing. The other thing is, I don't think a lot of people understand what's going on. You can't if you've never to play off of your words, Tony. If you've never been to McDonald's, then you've never tasted their fries. But there have been 186 executions that have taken place that those executed have been later to be found innocent.
Whoa.
So 186 people lost their lives to our government who were innocent. And
yes,
and that's my way of supporting the efforts. Yes, we must make change.
This concludes this session with the Hustlers Corner New York City. We just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you are a person who has been wrongfully convicted of a crime you didn't commit and you're free now, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Victims of the System series. If you are a person that is self-reformed and active in the community, enacting positive change within the community, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Legends of the Hood series. If you are a Black-owned business and you want to share your story about your business and about how you built it from the ground up and about your products, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Black Business Movement series. If you are a up-and-coming artist, hip-hop, rap artist, performing artist, and you'd like to share your story, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City On the Grind series. If you are a woman who has been through traumatic times and you'd like to share your story of success and triumph, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Lipstick Story series. And be on the lookout now for our new Rage page, in which we talk about current events that are affecting everyone within and without the community. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. And as always, please do us that big favor, show your love. Like, share, don't forget to leave a comment, and most of all, subscribe. This is Perry L. Duff coming at you live from the Hustlers Corner New York City. Peace.